Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Can-Sbx Q&A. Hope you're here to learn more about our Stratospheric Balloon Experiment Design Challenge. My name is Alina Kunitska. I'm a projects chair for SEDS-Canada. And to start us off, I would just like to give a quick introduction to what SEDS-Canada is. So SEDS-Canada stands for Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. We're a nonprofit student-run organization, and our goal is to develop professional development opportunities for students, hands-on technical opportunities, and networking opportunities for students that wish to engage with the Canadian space industry. And one way in which we do this is through our projects, such as Can-Sbx. So in today's session, we'll give a brief overview of what Canadian Stratospheric Balloon Experiment is, and then we'll have a period of live Q&A where you can ask us questions. So as we do an introduction about Can-Sbx, please feel free to start posting your questions in the chat, either on YouTube or on Facebook, and we'll get to those later on in the presentation. And to start us off with the introduction, we have our assistant project managers for Can-Sbx joining us today, McKenna and Megan. And Megan is actually transitioning to a project manager role for the next campaign. So I'll pass it on to Megan to get us started on the introduction for Can-Sbx.
Thanks, Alina. I'm Megan. I'm been an assistant project manager for SEDS for this campaign that's launching this year. And then, like she said, I'll be transitioning into project manager for next year's campaign. So let's dive right in. Can-Sbx is the Canadian Stratospheric Balloon Experiment. So students compete to have their payload launched on a balloon that goes up to the stratosphere. We work with the CSA, Canadian Space Agency, on this, who creates and launches the balloons. Students are able to have the opportunity to test a small scientific experiment, and they also learn how to operate and recover, and they get to see that whole sort of timeline of a launch start to finish and get to be involved at every step and really learn a lot from how the CSA operates at the same time. So for you, you get to learn how to operate a real payload mission. You get to design your own experiment and create it and build it with your team with lots of help and feedback from CSA experts in the field. You also get a lot of experience in managing a project on a scale like this, as well as how to communicate your ideas with different sorts of people. How do you communicate with the public, with your school advisors? How do you communicate that with the CSA, and so forth? And you also get to do a lot of networking with people in the CSA, with other people involved in the project as you go through. So for the whole idea behind it is you get to really do meaningful research in science and publish your work at the end with your data. The timeline is the proposals are due November 14th, and then November 29th, we'll select the teams and let you know if you've been selected to go in the launch. And then it goes into the design and build phase. So February 27th, we have a preliminary design review where you show us where you're at, what you're planning for the project and what that's going to look like. And it's an opportunity for both us and the CSA to give you feedback on your design and make any changes that you need to make. And then May 1st is the critical design review. That's when you have sort of the final version of this is what it's going to be. This is what's going up on the balloon. And again, it's another opportunity for CSA to give you feedback and make any final changes that you need. And then we'll probably be doing the launch campaign next summer, mid-August to mid-September. So I think McKenna is going to take over from here.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. So I'm an assistant project manager, and I've really enjoyed working on this project. Like Megan said, it's a great opportunity, and I encourage anyone who's interested to submit a proposal. Right now, we have 2 teams that are hoping to fly their payloads. The first one is from Queens, and theirs is like an ADCS system. They're testing it using a stratospheric balloon to see how it works, how the software works. And then we also have Polyorbit that's testing their gas sensor to see if it can correctly characterize the gases in our stratosphere. So we have lots of other different projects that are on our website, and I can talk more about that on the next slide. As we have a website, if you search up Can-Sbx, it will show up, or at the link here. And you'll find everything you need to apply. The handbook has all the details you need for the proposal. There's a rubric as well. It's quite detailed. There's an interest form as well to submit any ideas you might have, so you can get some initial feedback from us before you write the full proposal. There's also instructions for submitting the proposal and any other related documents. So you'll basically use this handbook throughout the duration of competing in this competition. And there's also a list of all the past teams that we had, so you can kind of get some inspiration on what they did, and also see if your idea kind of lines up with any of the other ones that were previously done.
Great. So we're now at our Q&A session. So we're really looking forward to getting some questions from you in the Facebook or YouTube chats. And I guess I'll get us started with some questions. I guess a common question is just about the team requirements, like how many people are allowed on the team, can part-time students participate, and can grad students participate?
Yeah, so there were no size constraints on team members. We've had a pretty wide variety of team sizes, but we recommend having at least 6 to really launch something on this scale. You need a decent team in order to help you out with that. It's not a solo mission for sure.
And in terms of grad students, they can participate, but there is a constraint on the percentage of undergrads, graduate students, and also advisors. You need a primary advisor, but you can have as many other advisors as you need on the team as well.
And to add to that, part-time students can apply. You just have to be a student at a Canadian post-secondary institution, whether it's a university or a college. Great. And while we wait for some more questions, I would also like to advertise that we currently have an open position for Can-Sbx Assistant Project Manager. So if you are interested in working on the project management side of things of Can-Sbx, definitely check out SEDS.ca/join to apply. The deadline to apply is coming up on October 31st. But maybe McKenna and Megan, if you have any comments about your experience on the project management side of things of SBX so far.
Yeah, I've loved being on the project management side of things, being able to see the student teams, see their progress. You get really exposed to a lot of new ideas and different types of science that you can put on a launch like this, as well as regular check-ins with the CSA. So we get to work really closely with them on making this project happen, which is an awesome opportunity both to see how they do it, as well as network with them and make potential connections that could help you once you graduate.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think yesterday we had a meeting with the CSA, and I remember probably a year ago before I started this project, that was a dream of mine to be able to talk to people from the CSA, and now I work with them quite closely. So it definitely helps with networking and getting that experience. And even the people I met on the team, like Megan, Alina, they're great people that are doing such great things in the space industry. So making those connections early is really valuable, I think.
And I'm sure everyone at the CA is lovely, but the team that we get to work with is just awesome. They're very great to work with, and they're so knowledgeable in their fields. So,
yeah, I agree. And project management is such a important part of making successful missions. So I would definitely encourage anyone who's interested to apply.
Yeah, hopefully we convince some people to apply for our Can-Sbx position. But back to maybe some technical questions now about preparing a proposal for Can-Sbx. So when it comes to the payload considerations, can objects stick out of the payload, for example, if you need to have an antenna?
So objects can protrude from the payload, but you would have to submit a request for deferral, which you should write in your proposal that you would need to do something like that. But it should be noted that requests aren't always approved. So if you can stay in the volume limit, but if you do need an antenna, for example, you can submit a request.
And often the really important thing with that is making sure that you have a really solid reason, explore if there's other ways you can accomplish the same goal as having something like an antenna or whatever it might be sticking out. And also making sure that you've got contingencies, or have you looked at the safety aspect? Is it stable enough? What we're often looking for is to see that you've kind of thought it through and you have good reasoning behind any deviations from the guidelines.
Great. And another more technical question is there power that is supplied to the payload from the gondola?
The balloon gondola does not provide power to the payload, so that if you do require power to make sure your experiment work, you should have a power source included in your design and within the design constraints that are laid out in the handbook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for those constraints, consult the handbook because they will have quite detailed instructions on what is allowed and what isn't allowed.
Great. And maybe a couple of logistical questions. So what are sort of the funding expectations for the teams that wish to participate?
So teams are required to, or expected to, have their own source of income. Of course, if you need like support, you can always email us and we might have some knowledge on some funding opportunities you can apply for, but that should be something you can provide for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And another question is, in general, is there any tips that we can give teams that are looking to apply and how to put together a good proposal? And maybe I'll start the answer for that one, and then if you have anything to add. But my biggest piece of advice would be to really carefully review the handbook that we have posted on our website, as it outlines all of the requirements. So first of all, you have to make sure you meet the requirements, as well as check out the evaluation criteria and really make sure that you're hitting all of the points that are mentioned in the evaluation criteria. And I think it's also helpful to review past teams' projects to give you some ideas of the sorts of experiments that have been done before, and to maybe inspire you to find some ideas that are novel things to do on this platform.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And just to add to that as well, make sure, try to have a core team at least in place. Like the members of your overall team might fluctuate during the course of the project, depending on where people are at in their studies. But make sure you have a few people around who are really committed to seeing it all the way through that can form the core group. And again, in your proposals, show us what you're thought about. What is the science you're hoping to accomplish? What are your goals for the outcome? And then really break down for us how this experiment is going to achieve that outcome for you, and how you've thought about those contingencies. And again, Alina already said it, but look at the handbook. There's so much valuable information in there.
Mm-hmm. And be as detailed as possible, because the more details you give us, the more we think that you've thought it through. And if you have any questions, like, don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we can always give you tips or make sure that your proposal is hitting those essential points and there's no kind of questions that go unanswered in your proposal.
Yeah, and you're concerned, you can always send us your proposal ahead of the deadline, and if we're able to, we can give you some feedback on it before you make your final submission.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll add to that is we're in the process of putting a how-to guide with all sorts of tips and tricks as you go through the SBX project. But in the meanwhile, on our website, you can find a how-to guide for our Can-Sbx project, which has very useful tips on how to start a team at your university, how to look for ideas, and I think it is very much relevant for the SBX project as well. So you can check that out. Speaking of feedback that we can provide on the proposals, but during the actual Can-Sbx project, if teams have any technical questions related to their design, is there someone that they can ask for help?
Yeah, any of us. So there's a general Can-Sbx email. So it's just Can-Sbx@SEDS.ca. If you send that, that actually goes to all of us. And any of us who are available can jump on and answer your questions. Feel free to email us at any time if you have questions, need advice, or anything like that, and we'd be happy to help.
And during the project, you'll have access to CSA professionals. So they can also provide a lot of support on certain questions, and they'll also be reviewing your documents as well. So they'll be working very closely with you.
And another question is, will there be lab space or equipment provided for the teams to build their experiments?
So for lab space, you would want to find that, same with funding, find that for yourself and make sure that you have lab space. You'd also want to communicate this in your proposal, that plans for lab space, and equipment as well. You want to provide your own equipment. For the launch site, we do have tools, but they're not specialized tools for like integration. So you would want to, if you had any specialized tools, you would want to bring that with you to the campaign.
And again, same as for funding, we're available for advice on how to get it. Most universities will happily provide lab space and equipment use for you, especially if you're working with a particular faculty advisor. They can help you out with a lot of those needs as well. Usually, depending on the situation, there might be some space available for you for integration at the actual launch site with the CSA professionals there. But for actual building the project, that's probably going to happen in your own universities with your team.
And speaking of the launch campaign, what sort of experiences can teams expect to get during the launch campaign itself once they have their payloads ready to go?
So I would say that this depends a lot on the restrictions that are placed on us, but ideally teams in the past were able to attend their launch, help with like the integration, of course, and also if restrictions are not an issue, you might be able to go work with the CSA, kind of get some presentations and see what it's like to work at the CSA. And also, while you're there, you'll also get procedural training on how to do a successful stratospheric balloon launch.
And if you're really curious, we're going to be doing this year's launch in a few weeks, hopefully, if we don't have more delays. So if you check out the SBX page on SEDS.ca, there's going to be some information, so you can sign up for more info, and we're going to be sharing a lot of content on and around the launch date. So you'll be able to see what's going on for this year's launch.
I need to work with the CSA experts to learn about the launch as well as recovery procedures for stratospheric balloon payloads. So we don't have a lot of time left, so if you do have any questions, please send those in the chat. Maybe to sort of finish off a couple of more logistical questions. First of all, can international students apply? And secondly, for the faculty advisor, can it be a postdoctoral researcher or graduate students? And maybe I can take those questions. So international students can apply. Again, as we've said before, you just have to be enrolled in a Canadian post-secondary institution. And when it comes to a faculty advisor, they have to hold a faculty position at the university or post-secondary institution. So unfortunately, postdoctoral researchers or doctoral students cannot be a faculty advisor. But if you do have any questions about that, please feel free to send us an email. And yeah, I think we're sort of getting close to our 30-minute time point, and we don't seem to have any more questions at the moment. So I think we can wrap up and go ahead to the next slide. Great. So again, just to review the process, if you want to participate in Can-Sbx, you can form a team, come up with an idea for an experiment. You can then find a faculty advisor at your school that will help support the project. Ideally, you want to have someone who has some expertise in the topic that you're looking to experiment with so that they can provide feedback. And then if you can, do submit a notice of intent on our website and then submit your proposal by November 14th. And if at any point during the submission process you have any questions, please do feel free to email us at Can-Sbx@SEDS.ca. And if you missed this Q&A session and want to attend another one, we do have another Q&A session planned for this coming Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And yeah, with that, thank you very much for joining us this Saturday. We look forward to receiving your applications on before November 14th.
Thank you.
Thanks.